we got a few of us, there are a few folks that are camera shy and off. So we're doing a ON30. This is the California Central Coast ON30 group. We're at Dave Gill's shop down in San Jose doing a Friday at work day. So I saw Frank here, so just before we start, Frank, I noticed you got a new phone number. You got a 332 phone number because you sent me a text asking to buy Apple gift cards. So I appreciate that. It was good to see you. Then if you put your email address or your phone number up publicly, especially in a club like this, they go and they get Frank's name as president, and then they send me this text or email from Frank. I'm in a meeting and I can't do anything. I need you to go buy me $400 or $500 Apple gift cards because it's really important. I'll reimburse you later. I never know whether to string them. I always think it'd be fun to just string them on for a while. There's a guy in the UK that does that, but it always seemed like a lot of effort to me. So with that, I'm going to just do a couple of slides. I'll step out of the picture here, and then we'll get started.
Oh, Frank.
I'm determined to have fun today.
Good. That's a good determination, sir.
So anyway, I'm going to just be very quick. I want to just cover the upcoming events for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to throw it over to George, and we'll be able to go to, then we'll be able to talk about sharing and stuff afterwards. So
one thing, Phil, how's the registration going for the convention?
We're up to about, I think, 80 something. So yeah, we're getting pretty well. But yeah, if you haven't registered for the convention, register for the convention. We'll have another special here in a few weeks, so we'll start getting out on that. Just as a side, next week on Monday or Tuesday, we'll make the announcement of, I may have to go over here where you guys can see me. We'll make the announcement of the visit to the Carter Brothers. I say Carter Brothers, it always sounds to me like it should be an Irish pub. SPCC, Society for Preservation of Carter Railroad Resources, which actually happens to also be the South Pacific Coast Railroad. So that's the group that has the facilities at Ardenwood. And that's going to be a really cool tour. You guys will see it probably on Monday or Tuesday. We'll announce it. There'll be a great tour there. You'll be able to go to their shops and spend a lot of time in the shops and seeing all the cars they're rebuilding. And then in the afternoon after the tour, we'll have a couple of layout tours there because it turns out Jack Burgess and Jim Diaz are really close. They're in Newark. So we'll have a few really great layout tours as part of that field trip. But anyway, so these are the 3 upcoming events. I want everybody to get on your calendars. February 2nd to 4th is the San Francisco Bay Area Layout Design and Operations Weekend. That's in Santa Rosa. The main day is Saturday, which will be the 3rd, with operations on the 2nd and the 4th. Today is the last day to get the early bird fare for that event. There's also a that's worth going to. Similarly, by the way, the convention, there's a virtual version of the convention for everyone who doesn't know as well. February 24th to 25th is the Great Train Show in San Jose Fairground. We'll be doing an NMRA recruiting booth again there like we did in Pleasanton. If you're able to that weekend work 4 hours and at the show, it's great to get in and actually work members in Pleasanton. So you need to do a similar kind of activities in San Jose. And finally, March 10th, have not announced this yet. This is the first announcement of this. We will be scheduling the Goshen Park Steam Train, as it's called. That'll be an opportunity to go up there, spend some time with in the shops with the guys that do all the maintenance and repair those. We all think of that as being a toy train, but the reality is keeping it on a daily basis is no different than any other train. And then that'll be followed by some local layout in the Berkeley. I think they'll be March 10th if you have, and we'll be there for that. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to throw it over to George. And George is going to talk about their new Bluinami product. I think introduce George. George lives in Durango. He's one of the people that I actually really envy. I've actually been out to his house. I got to go out there during the narrow gauge convention, and I mean, it's a very interesting layout in his garage that is not very narrow gauge for Colorado. I was somewhat disappointed in that, but it's very nice layout. It was actually interesting. I got to go on the Soundtraxx tour, which, what I was impressed with is Soundtraxx does their own board manufacturing there in Colorado for the decoders there. We had some great conversations.
Phil,
What's happening with Blackstone and kind of the challenges. George really is here to talk about Bluinami. I'm going to throw it to you.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. And Phil, you'll notice behind me is my layout. And this is a part of the layout you didn't see when you were here in, when was it, August? Because I've actually expanded quite a bit of the layout. So anyway, hopefully you guys can hear me. Everything's coming through because my screen looks frozen. So if everybody can hear me, just let me know real quick.
Hear you.
Yeah,
We can hear you.
Okay. All right. Because I will tell you, being out here in southwestern Colorado, the internet isn't always the best. So we work with what we've got. So anyway, just as he mentioned, I'm here in Durango, Colorado. I've actually been a modeler since I was 14. And so I've had a great group of people that I grew up with teaching. I'm sorry?
It may be better just muting your video then, because you're basically free.
Okay. Let me try that, and then I'll try to come on to video when I need to make a something to show off. Cool. Is this coming through a little better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So anyway, so my growing up, I had a bunch of people around me that were able to teach me about model railroading. The way I've looked at this hobby is nobody's born knowing how to do all this stuff. We acquire the skills. Some of us have affinities for certain parts of the hobby, but we all have to learn how to do it in order to create these layouts that we're doing. So we have to learn construction. We have to learn woodworking. We have to learn scenery. We have to learn painting. We have to learn the equipment. We have to learn how to build the models and take them apart and do things with them. We have to build buildings and everything. And so DCC and sound is just another part of our hobby that I'm always happy to share with everybody when it comes to, enhancing your hobby experience. Because one of the things I've noticed over the years talking to people is a lot of people, I'll talk to them and say, hey, here's how you do X, Y, Z. And they say, oh, I don't know how to do that. I guess I'll just live with it. Well, the answer is you don't really have to just live with it. The good news is you don't have to live with it. We can help get you there, but you have to be willing to learn it. And once you learn it, and as they always say, knowledge is power. And so the more you know, the better off you can decide for yourself how much of the hobby you want to do in various aspects. So like, say, for example, when it comes to DCC and sound, and especially now with our new Bluinami, as you're running your trains, if all you want to do is run the throttle and blow the horn, ring the bell, that's fine. But if you don't know about the other stuff that you can do with it, then are you really enjoying your hobby to the fullest, or are you just living with it because you're afraid to learn stuff? And that's why I'm always been approachable. Anybody can call me, email me at work at Soundtraxx. It's georgeb@soundtraxx.com, and ask me questions, and I'll be happy to help explain anything to the nth degree to help make sure you comprehend what you're asking, so that way you can enjoy your hobby better. So with that, we at Soundtraxx have always been on the innovative edge. We've always been trying to push the technology and be able to bring you the best decoders for your hobby. And so today we're going to do a brief overview of the Bluinami. And Bluinami is kind of a funny word. I'm sure everybody's like, what the hell does that come from? Well, it's a merge of the words tsunami and Bluetooth. And so basically what you're getting is a Bluetooth Tsunami 2 decoder. Now, this is a full Tsunami 2 decoder, so it has, pun intended, all of the bells and whistles that a Tsunami 2 decoder can do, including all the equalizer, brake settings, all the sound selections, everything that you can do with a Bluinami, with a Tsunami 2, just now we've added the extra benefit of being able to talk to it wirelessly through a Bluetooth connection. And in that Bluetooth connection, you can use either your iPhone or your iPad, any tablets. Now we also do have Android and Android tablets that you can use to talk directly to the decoder. And what this does is this allows you to essentially bypass your DCC system. Now, because it is a Tsunami 2 decoder, it will work on DCC track power. So you get the best of all worlds with Bluinami. So you can run it with your already equipped DCC locomotives that you have with Tsunami 2, but then the ones you upgrade with Bluinami now, you can run off of your, like I said, your phone or your tablet. Now, why is this important? And I know this is one of the questions and part of the reason why I'm here is when you're running through the commands coming from your tablet or your smart or your phone, the decoder is just using the track for power. And what that means is that when it's just using the track for power, it's not relying on the track for commands, i.e. DCC or variable voltage DC. It is literally just using the track for power. So what that does is that opens the door up for analog users to hit the jackpot now, because they don't have to go invest in these, expensive DCC systems, wireless throttles. They don't have to hook up their computers and everything to be able to take advantage of all the benefits of the Bluinami now. They can just run DC track power, open up the app, connect to it, and they get all the benefits of their DCC system without having to buy one. Now, take that one step farther, and that also opens up the door for affordable and easy battery operation. Because if the decoder is just using the DC track for power, now the DC battery supply can now operate your Bluinami. Now, I realized I had to shut my camera down for a moment, but behind me here, and I'll turn the camera on a little bit, and we'll try to get through it.
Why don't you?
I have a RGS.
George, why don't you try the camera again now? See if
Okay.
it would work better now, because it seems like the contact's better. There, try that.
Okay.
That was good. See how that works.
So over here behind me, I have a RGS 41, and this is an ON3 model. Now, Phil, when you came and visited, this was the way I had this. Actually, I think I left it at the office, but there's my narrow gauge. But anyway, it's a battery powered model. On board, I have an 11.1 volt battery, and there's a magnetic reed switch that I could just use the little magnet, run over the power supply, and then now it's powered up, and I can just simply connect to it. So when we're looking at the app on the phone, this is your first screen, you can see that I've got this Mopac diesel behind me here, and then I have my RGS 41, and they're connected. I have two options. I have standard or multi-train. If I click multi-train, you can see that I have multiple throttles there in front of me that I can use to operate the individual locomotives with their respective names down here on the bottom, so that way you can see which locomotive you're controlling. So say, for example, here, if I want to run the RGS 41 behind me, I just simply turn the throttle knob up, and you can see he's going to start running there in the background. And I have access to my headlight, bell, long whistle, short whistle, and that's my immediate access of functionality. And you can do up to 3 on your screen at a time, and there's a little arrow right there. You can cycle through any number of locomotives you can keep track of. Or we're going to go back here, and we're going to go to standard, which is single locomotive. And so there I've got the locomotive behind me. This is my diesel engine. And so I can just simply press the short whistle right there, and you can hear that air horn. I'm hoping you can hear the air horn or any of the steam. But when you pull there's a little icon here at the top, and you see this little speaker icon. And what that does, that allows us to pull out a menu that there is all your function maps in. So instead of trying to remember that F11 does the brake or F14 does switching mode or whatever other settings you have, it's all labeled right there for you. So you don't have to worry about trying to remember all that stuff when you're operating your train. It's right there. And you'll notice that it doesn't cover the direction switch or the throttle knob. So
George?
you can operate your train with that right there. So yes,
George?
sir.
Yeah, I just wanted, I had some,
Yes, I'm
do you
here.
want us to wait to the end to ask questions, or can we ask some questions now?
Um, let's go ahead and try to add we'll do, if it's something but maybe a yes or no, we'll go ahead and ask it. And if it's a further in-depth question, we'll get a little further in towards the end.
I'll save my questions.
I think,
Does that sound okay?
George, we had one question in the chat, which was, what is the level of Android that you support? Android devices.
I don't know that off the top of my head. Shoot me an email and I'll get you an answer. GeorgeB@soundtraxx.com. And that way I can get you the right answer for it. Because I don't know that off the top of my head, because technically Android is still in development. And the Android app right now can do everything you want to do with a single locomotive, including some really cool features such as CV backup, where it'll store all the CVs in it, which I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. And then if you do a decoder reset, you can always restore everything that was in it from the Android, and that's eventually going to be ported into the Apple version of the app. So I'm not sure the Android version yet, so we'll get up to it here in a little bit. Or email me and I'll get you an answer. I'm sorry. I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself. So this is the operation of the decoder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just really quickly, I'm going to show you, this is the single screen here. And then you have this arrow over here, which allows you to toggle between the different locomotives. And of course, there's my throttle for my RGS 41 and my whistle and so forth. And then again, I can pull this out and it has all of the functionality on it. So I'm going to mute him right there in the background. And like I said, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit here. My apologies. But so anyway, when we talk about the Bluetooth app, like I said, this opens up the door for battery power, because this is a battery powered locomotive. I just have a piece of ON3 track on a piece of wood laying on top of my HO track right now, just as a demo so I can show it off. Ideally, your battery power will be the same as your DC power, which means anywhere between I'd recommend no lower than 10, but the decoder actually powers up at about 6. But once you start sending power to the motor, then you potentially run that risk of drowning the power down and shutting the decoder down, as we've seen, and depending on the efficiency of the motor. But I'd recommend somewhere, but honestly, you can run this with a 9-volt battery. Connect a 9-volt battery, put it in your model, you're good to go. Now, where this advantage comes into play is, like I said, analog, you don't have anything else that you have to hook up. You can run your track on DC power, connect directly to the decoder. Now, when it comes to operating the Bluetooth, I know most people are used to the headphones, and that has about a 30-foot range. Now, we advertise up to 100 feet of range for operation of the Bluinami is what we advertise. But we've actually have a YouTube video where we've taken it about 145 feet or so before we lost connection. Now, the advantage here of Bluetooth is that it's paired. So once I connect to it, nobody else can connect to that locomotive because it's paired to my device. So if there was somebody over here in the background, searching locomotives, they'd only be able to run the non-connected locomotives to my app. So that's one of the advantages of using the Bluetooth. Now, other things, so like I said, you get access to the full Tsunami 2, and the full Tsunami 2, during the years, Model Railroader was running their favorite decoders, which is my brain just went blank. The Model Railroaders Reader's Choice Awards. That was the word I was looking for. And we won favorite sound decoder the 2 years that they ran the contest in 20 and 21. And so therefore, we know that people like the decoder. We put so much features into the decoder, and this just gives you the extra benefit of being able to use that Tsunami 2, but now wirelessly with the Bluetooth. And I think I saw somebody went in there asked about metal. When you have a decoder and you put it in, this is a brass ON3 precision scale. When you put it into the model, you want to make sure that you have about a 1/2 inch range around where the Bluetooth chip is. and then you'll never notice a difference. So this decoder actually is mounted up here in the boiler. And so what I did was I mounted it to make sure that where that Bluetooth chip was more centered into the boiler. And so I put a piece of foam on the other side to kind of force it over to the one side. But if you have a metal tender, you put it in there. Just make sure that your Bluetooth chip is about a 1/2 inch away from the metal tender frame or anything like that, or in this case, the boiler, and you should be fine. This model's plastic, no problems whatsoever. And you can get full range, but if you do put it inside a metal, you might lose, I don't know, maybe about 10, 15, 30 feet, something like that from range. But if you're talking about a range of 145 feet, you shouldn't have any problem with connectivity. Same thing as if you were to run into a tunnel with a mountain where you have the chicken wire around it, you shouldn't have any issues with connectivity because that's not right up against that transmitter. So basically, so this is kind of the basic premise behind the Bluinami. So now I want to show you a couple of other things. So first off, we've talked about the operations, and you can access all of this. Now, there's a couple of things that the app can do that the DCC systems and anything out there really can't do. Number one is, as I mentioned, everything's labeled here. But when I pull this menu out a little bit further, you see all these blanks, and what that's doing is that allows me to type in whatever word I want to use. So like, say for example, if I don't like the mute button, or if I want to change it, move things around, I can rename anything, whatever I want to do. And where that comes into play is on page 2 here, we have our FX lights, and you can see that it says, I've changed the FX3 to my white class lights. FX4 is my green class lights, and FX5 is my cab light. And you can see below it, you see FX6 and F28, and that's where I can rename. So I don't have to remember the FX3 is the white class lights turned on by button 24. It's all done there through the app. But one other thing here is you can see these green dots that are along the side here, and that allows me to make any of these buttons momentary. And so when I come in here, there's certain functions that are on what are called leading edge, which means they happen when the button is turned on. And such as like the grade crossing, for example, you turn it on and it will play the grade crossing, but then you have to turn it off to turn it back on. And the reason we did that, honestly, was because there were times where, let's say, for example, you're running your DCC locomotive and it loses power and comes back on. Well, depending on your command station, it may constantly send out a command, or it may not, and depends on what it is. So this way you're always in sync if you turn it off to turn it back on. But with Bluinami, since you're not relying on the DCC track power, if you lose power, then obviously you're going to have a bigger issue when you connect to the app. So with a Bluinami, I always encourage using a current keeper or stay alive module, whatever you can do. But what this does, this allows me to make the buttons momentary. So when I push the grade crossing, it starts the grade crossing, but then as soon as I release, it's ready to go, so I can press it again if I'm ready. And this is one of the advantages that Bluinami offers you. And so if you had one of these lights over here that you wanted to just be a momentary light, you can certainly do that and be able to turn on the functionality. That's basically the biggest functionality of the operation screen. There's going to be more involved when we get to diesels, but I want to show a couple of things off first. So first off, when we go in here, we hit that gear at the bottom, and this is where we have our full setup screen. So this is a full menu where I can operate and control the decoder settings. Everything's written out here in English terms. So first off, here at the top, whoops, let's see here. You can see that we've got our loco nickname. We can rename that whatever we want. And what's great about this particular setting is, like, say, for example, especially in today's modeling where there's so many mass-produced models out there, there's a lot of people who may have the same models at the same club. But now, let's say, I don't know, John has to run his as 3985, but then Bill has 3985 also, and he wants to run his. And so, but John's already running 3985, so he runs his as 85. And then somebody else comes in with the same one, and I have to run mine as 39 because the other two are already taken, or whatever the case is. What this does, first off, because once you pair to this, it's no longer watching the DCC's track signal, so it doesn't matter how many 3985s you have running on the layout. And then number two is you can identify whose locomotives is which. So you could have John's 3985 written here in the name, so that when Bill comes in and he opens up his app, he sees, oh, John's locomotive's here, but there's mine. So he connects only to his. But there is the DCC address too, because it is still a DCC decoder at heart. And so when you're operating the locomotive on DCC, it still runs just like any other decoder. So you can set the address right there. And you don't have to worry about where you're programming the address on the main line, on the programming track, doesn't matter. As long as the decoder has power, you can do all your settings and CV adjustments right there. The other thing is now we go into making adjustments to the decoder's performance. And so you'll see there's sound settings, light settings, speed settings. We can actually adjust. The answer is yes, it will receive inside a brass model. This is the brass locomotive right here, and the decoder's up here in the boiler. So we had right here, we have, whoops, sorry, I keep going away from the camera here. Our CV settings. Now we have our consist functions and dynamic digital exhaust calibration. So first off, just really quickly, I'm going to go into sound settings, and you can see here that we've got our master volume. And so we can simply open this up, and there's a slider bar, and I can move this if I can get my fingers to cooperate, and I'm doing this behind. I can just move the slider bar back and forth, and it instantly changes those volumes on that decoder. You can see here at the top, it actually is programming CVs, but it's doing it behind the scenes, so you don't necessarily need to know how it's doing it or what it's doing. It's doing it right there for you. You can also type in the box here if you so choose. So you can click on the box, it gives you the number, you can type in however you want to do it. But if you want to, you can just simply adjust that. Now, when it comes to sound selection, all of our decoder sounds are preloaded into the decoder, so you don't have to go and spend money buying an expensive programmer or spend hours searching through a website or a catalog trying to figure out which sounds are right. They're all pre-programmed in here, and it takes seconds. So up top here, you see it's our exhaust chuff, volume, reverb, and then engine exhaust control is our chuff rate. But let's just say we want to change the whistle. So right there, we have our whistle. And you can see right now I've got it set as 340 for the yard. Right now I got them muted, so let's go back here. Oops. Sound settings, main sounds. And so what we're going to do is we're simply going to click on that. And you can see a full roster list of all of the whistles that are on there. And then you'll see this highlighted because that's the one that's already picked. So we scroll through here, and you can see all of the different sound files that are preloaded. And on our Steam decoder, we have 90 different whistles to choose from. And you can go through and pick any of the whistles you want to pick. So just for grins here, let's pick, I don't know, let's do this. Here we go. We'll do this Star Brass 3 chime. So you can see I clicked on Star Brass 3 chime. It's got the name. This little icon over here allows me to sample it. So I can actually decide if that's the right whistle that I want or not. And then I can adjust the volume right there while it's playing. So if I turn it on, I can move the volume all live as it's going. And so I can make those adjustments. And remember, I'm on the main line here technically. So I can make all my adjustments right here without having to worry about it. Scroll down, there's your different bells. We've got 54 different bell recordings. We've got 10 exhaust chuffs, 10 air compressors, different couplers, different dynamos. We've got 8 dynamos. You can even change the different, whether it's a Johnson bar or a power reverse, you can do all this different adjustments. But all of this is done through the app, and everything has a slider bar or in a box that you can type in. Now, when it comes to lights, for example, you have the same thing. I can adjust my, brilliance of the lights right through here using adjustment slider bars, or I can type in values, and I can pick the different lighting effects. So for example, here, my headlight settings, You can see that it's a dyno light, which turns on with the sound of the dynamo. Then you can do phase selection, whether it's an incandescent bulb or an LED, forward or rear direction enabled, and then crossing logic causes a lighting effect to happen once the lighting effect is triggered. And so you've got all these settings right here in the app. So we can go through and do all of this for all of our different lighting effects. Speed settings, you want to build a custom speed table. There's your 3-point speed table. And then there's the 28-point speed table. And then up here would be where your momentum settings are going to be. So you can adjust and add momentum into your locomotive and things like that. All of it's done right here. Now, when it comes to reading CVs, when a DCC system reads a CV, it actually plays a game of 256 questions. So when you're on the programming track, the DCC system, it doesn't work as simple as we think. It doesn't say, hey, decoder, what's the value in CV 29? And the decoder says 6. No, it's a little bit more archaic than that. Remember when we was kids and we played 20 questions? Well, this is 256 questions. Is the value 0? No. Is the value 255? No. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 6? And when the decoder finally answers yes, it draws current. And the DCC system detects that change in current on the programming track. And that's how you read a CV. But here in the app, because the processor is connected directly to the Bluetooth chip, I can read all CVs in a matter of seconds. Whereas if you're using other programs like JMRI or any of that type of stuff, I had a customer make a joke with me one time. He says, well, I was on JMRI and I was reading all CVs. So I went and made lunch, read War and Peace, came back and then actually built an extension of the layout by the time it was done. And this actually works in a matter of seconds. And so we push the read all CVs and you can see how fast it's working. And it's done. It is now read all CVs and I'm still technically operating on the main line. And so these are some of the benefits that you get. But when it comes to the Bluinami Tsunami decoders, one of the best features we have is a feature called dynamic digital exhaust. And what this does is this reads the load on the motor and will adjust the chuff sound or the exhaust sound in a diesel locomotive based on the work that the locomotive is doing. And so you have a calibration process. And so we go down here to dynamic digital exhaust and you hit begin calibration. Now, this is only a 3-foot section of track, so I'm not going to do it right now. But you hit that button and the entire operation starts and the decoder will do all the work for you. And then once it's done, the decoder has all these features in here. Now, I did see this comment. If you're overwhelmed, don't panic. You don't have to do all of this at once. First off, if you're interested in Bluinami and you want to be able to have the wireless control and a DCC, get one, try it out. What I usually talk to customers, I'll tell them, I say, okay, there's a ton of features in here. We're trying to give you all the features to be able to simulate running a locomotive. And the biggest problem is, especially in the business, is that if you're not adding more features, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. And so, and if you're overwhelmed by my presentation, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do as much as I can and give you the information in a short period of time. I can talk for 7 hours on this product. So I'm trying to give you the highlights. I recommend if you want, give me a call or an email and we'll talk at your pace and we can discuss anything that you want to do about the Bluinami, but there's so much cool things in here. Do you have a pre-installed test stand? I have no idea what you're asking. You're going to have to save that one for the end and actually ask me. But anyway, so then we come in here, and one of the best features of Bluinami is when it comes to consisting, because the decoder will intelligently send the proper commands to the individual locomotives based on its position in a consist. And so I know I've been using the steam engine most of the time here, but when we come over here to consist functions, we click that and we have lead locomotive settings and we can turn on the bell, the horn, the short horn, all this stuff here. But then when we go to the mid loco, you'll see that horn, bell, short horn, and what's that down there? The others, all these other sounds are all different based on the position. And to add a locomotive to the consist, for example, here, And I'm going to go to my diesel locomotives for a second here. Now I've got two locomotives. One's by here behind me. The other one's down the way here in the yard. But what I'm going to do is down here on the bottom, I simply click the checkbox, and each device has up to 4 consists that you can build. Consist number A, consist B, C, or D. Just for today, we're going to pick consist number B. So we click the B. And you see now that the chain link says we're at consist B. So now I'm going to go to my other locomotive here. This is my Jeep 1575. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click consist B. And you'll see that my throttle disappeared because the app intelligently knows that they're consisted and paired together. But I have 2 questions. I have mid loco or rear loco, and this being 2 locomotives only, we're going to make it the rear. And then you have facing forward or facing backwards. And once you do that, the app will intelligently, based on your settings, send the commands to the proper locomotive based on its position. So when I blow the horn, ring the bell, the one behind me you can hear is blowing the horn, ring the bell. And operation would be just the same, use your throttle and so forth. But then when we get to the end and we're heading back, you have this button here. It says make lead. You just simply click that, and there's all your throttle settings. And then we go back to the other locomotive and they're gone because they know that they're paired. So now when I blow the horn, it's coming from the locomotive that's located way down over in the other side of the yard. And then to disconnect, you simply uncheck the box and the check goes away and the locomotives are no longer consistent. They go back to their individual settings. So anyway, that kind of gives you the basic overview. My apologies for kind of doing this on the fly because I'm doing this at home on my day off. So I wanted to share this information for you. If you guys have questions, we'll open the floor for some basic questions and Q&A. But if you want to dive deeper, email me or call me and we'll be happy to talk to you to make sure you understand everything. I'm not trying to make this confusing. It's actually a very easy product to use. As you can see here on my home screen, my whole layout is converted to Bluinami right now. So with that, I'll open the floor to questions for a little while.
Are there any questions?
I have some questions, if I may, George.
Yes, please, fire away.
First of all, let me clarify in my own mind. So on the question of conflicting commands where the locomotive is sitting on a DCC equipped layout, somebody has already got the locomotive 273 on their DCC throttle, but it's a Bluinami. So at the point where you fire up your Bluinami handset, it overrides and takes the locomotive away from the person that had it being controlled through the rails. Is that correct?
If you're trying to talk to the same locomotive, then yes.
Thank you.
But if you had somebody who was running 273 on DCC and you have 273, well, they would both run the same on the DCC system until you connect to the app for yours.
The app would grab it away. When you the function label set, that's all done since the app is talking to just that decoder and knows the entire function set for that decoder as configured. That's how it loads that label set. Is that my understanding correct?
Currently on the Android, yes. Apple is being updated. Apple function mapping Apple doesn't have the function mapping, so it's not auto-populated, but it will be very soon.
Got it. Thank you. How many dollars for one of my DCC locomotives to pull a decoder out and put the Bluinami in, sir?
So the Bluinami decoders start at $162.95, which represents about a $30 to $35 price difference between their Tsunami 2 cousin.
Got it. Thank you. How many active Bluinamis could be working all together in a room on one layout?
As many as you want. This is part that I did kind of skip a little bit. So the Bluetooth technology that we're using is called Bluetooth Low Energy. And BLE uses a channel surfing technology, and it has up to 37 channels that cycle the best connection between the device and the decoder. Now, doing that, so if it starts broadcasting on one channel and it hears interference, it'll immediately jump to another channel. So you don't have to worry about radio interference with, like, say, for example, if you're at a club with wireless throttles and the people are using DCC and you're using Bluinami, there's going to be no interference.
Thank you.
But the answer is that as many as you want, because typically not everybody's sending a command at the exact same time. But if you lined up 37 people next to each other and went 3, 2, 1, and they all hit the button at the same time, all 37 of those commands are going to be sent. Guy number 38, his command is going to have to wait half a second for one of those channels to free up.
Right. Thank you.
So again, it's kind of however many you can keep track of.
All right. One last quick question. So the range you're talking about is clear space. You have a clear sight line from the locomotive under question, 140 feet, to where you're standing with your radio, your app-loaded phone in your paw. Now, the thing is, you said in a tunnel it was fine, but in a layout that goes between different rooms, are we still going to see about the same performance?
Yes. We were testing the Bluinami production crew downstairs. And Phil, you can attest this. I think when you visited the office, I don't remember if they took you upstairs or not, but there's office buildings in 3 hallways. They were in the lunchroom, which is the classroom, and I was on the far corner of the building going through 2 offices, the hallway, 2 more offices, and then into the lunchroom through another hallway. So the range is actually amazing. Like I said, if there's metal framing or stuff like that, you may lose a few feet, but it doesn't have to be clear sight. And so most of our layouts, for example, the backdrops will be typically wood framing with masonite or some type of like that. You'll never notice a difference.
Thank you. Last thing here, Ken Adams was asking about a test bed, and this is in the sense of, is there a card or something where you can connect it up to the Bluinami and it has a motor on it and some lights and stuff, so before installing the Bluinami in the locomotive, you can verify that you're happy? Is there something you offer that would you can mate the Bluinami up to it and check it before you install it?
Gotcha. Short answer is we don't sell anything like that, but that's actually what part of our manufacturing process is. And so all of our technicians downstairs, with every single decoder we make, not just spot check or anything like that, actually do what's called bed and nails app setting. And so our decoder will set down onto pins that match up to the various terminals on the decoder. And then that is connected to a circuit board that has a motor, speaker, lights, and everything. And our technicians hand test every single decoder before they're shipped off, whether it's to you, to Athern, to Bachman, or whoever. Every single one of those decoders are hand tested by our technicians downstairs before they're shipped.
Thank you.
So
I'll
the
stop
need
hogging
for you to do it.
Thank you. I'll stop hogging the question space and let others ask questions. Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're fine. No, we do not sell one at test bed. If you want a test bed, you have to make one, but we do all that work for you, so you don't have to.
Is the communication protocol available to allow people to make a hardware-based throttle besides the phone? Didn't think so.
No, it is proprietary.
Okay.
And now, having said that, that doesn't mean that we won't be doing something like that. We've had some of those conversations, but this is fairly new technology that we're implementing into our product line. And so we haven't really explored its full capabilities, but short answer is no, we're going to keep that protocol to ourselves because it still is a DCC decoder. So if you want to use something like, say, for example, the proto throttle, you can still run it on your DCC system with the proto throttle.
Okay. I'll probably be in touch on email.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is Phil. So one thing that we are planning for trying to get put together at the convention is at least 1 or 2 clinics on kind of these new wireless control schemes and dead rail. I think they kind of go together, as George said. I think we've reached this very interesting point in time where, if you're building a layout, you consider doing a layout where you put 24 volts to all the straight track. Didn't worry about any power on any of the turnouts. Use the 24 volts to charge a small battery that gave you enough power to get over the turnouts. And if you kind of think about this as a trade-off, if you're building not an HO layout with 100 engines, but an ON30 narrow gauge layout or a switching layout, you've got 5 or 6 engines. If you come back to George's comment of $35 an engine, for 6 engines at $35, you're talking $200. For $200 in the right install, you can avoid all the complexities of buying a DCC, command station, boosters, wiring, circuit breakers, turnout frog powering, all that stuff. That if you look at the complexity of building a layout, I would argue of the under the layout stuff, it's probably 70 or 80% of the complexity. If you go to a dead rail system, and especially if you get power from the rails to charge the battery, when you're parked on rails that are charged with just 12 volts DC, it becomes a much easier layout to build. I think we're on the cusp of a very interesting transformation. So one of the things we want to talk a bit about that. And then the other thing that's really interesting is, if you're the prototypical long-term modeler with 100 DC engines in a DC layout, now you can basically put this kind of solution into two locomotives, and now you can have sound on the layout without doing any modification, and you don't lose your other 98 engines being able to run the layout. Plus, and then of course the other thing is I wrote on the thing, if you're going to a club, like there are certain clubs, I know the Walnut Creek Club is still DC. So, now if you go to the Walnut Creek Club, you can run your DCC locomotive using Bluetooth at a club like that or a friend's lab. So I think it's a really interesting thing because we've always had this kind of these two things that had to go together, right? DCC decoders and a DCC system. And you had to buy both of those for it to work. Now you don't have to buy both of those for it to work. And I personally think that's pretty transformational. So anyway, any other questions, comments? Or George get back to
I want to add one thing to what you're saying is that, when you talk about the app, everything's labeled right there. So it's very intuitive versus a DCC throttle, which how do I access function 24 on this throttle? It's not immediately intuitive. And so you have all these buttons. You have 3 different ways of controlling this.
Yeah.
Speed right here, you have 2 different ways of controlling the air horn. So it's a whole lot easier and simple since everything's labeled. Again, I'm not trying to knock this. This is basically our bread and butter is the DCC systems themselves. But I hear all the time from customers that tell me, well, how do I do this? And then I tell them and they go, oh, I don't know how to do that. That sounds complicated. I think I'll just live without it. And the answer is you don't have to live without it, guys. I mean, this is a really cool thing that you can do. And, but it's up to you. Obviously, this is your hobby. You do what you want, but I don't want you to say, I don't want to do something because you don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I try them. I don't want all the data for my experience. I put it on and see what we want. It hasn't really gone on.
I'm sorry,
Well,
somebody's
George,
talking. I can't understand a word they're saying.
Yeah, no, I think we got some background noise here where I am. I was going to mute, but I think
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
gonna do, George, let you go and enjoy the Colorado wilderness. I hope you're getting a little break of sunshine between storms there because it's starting to storm here. So
Yeah.
what we're getting, you'll get in about 2 days, I think. So
Yeah, that's usually the case.
well, thanks, George. Thanks again for coming. And I think it's a really cool change. I mean, it's really interesting. A lot of us think about DCC as being newfangled, but what you have to realize is DCC was based on technologies that were developed in the literally late 80s, early 90s. I mean, it's literally 30-year-old technology. The way it works was based on the capability set. And you got to remember back in 1990, I mean, we basically had dial-up modems. And the concept of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and this world we live in didn't even exist in the minds of the people that would develop it. It was basically universities at that point. So, I think this idea that we're starting to really rebuild these systems in a really profoundly different way is very interesting. So thanks, George. We appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day, since it's probably afternoon there by now. So.
It's but just before 11 o'clock, so I have enough time to do some work before I head out. So, but anyway, I do want to reiterate, guys, do not hesitate to call me or email me. Email me, georgeb@soundtraxx.com. I am very happy to help answer any questions you have. We'll spend as much time as it takes to answer any questions for you. That's one of the things that we want to do, because like I said, nobody's born knowing how to model railroad. And so this is just another aspect. And as a fellow modeler, I want to help you enjoy your hobby as best as you can. I'll spend as much time as you need. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. We'll be here for you guys. Okay. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And we hope to hear from you guys soon.
Take care.
Thanks. Well, everyone, I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and back out, and David's going to take over as host for the rest of this one, because it's kind of hard for me to do it from here. So 2 weeks from now, we're not going to have one of these Saturday meetings as a formal event. The reason is that that's the operation, the SIG weekend, the layout and operations meet. So I thought that was probably not a good day to try to do a formal meeting. The bridge will be available. I think that's February 3rd. The bridge will be here, but I'm not going to try to have a formal meeting or anything. So you're welcome to come and just do a social meetup that day. On the other hand, if you go to the Bay Area Layout SIG meet right now, you can get the virtual login for that. So anyway, with that, I'm going to throw it to David and let David kind of wrap this up and have discussions about modeling.
Dave, I actually am very interested in the Bluinami.
Good.
I think it has one advantage over the local Fi. It'll plug into an existing motherboard.
Ah. Yeah, I missed if there was an answer there, I missed it. So it's compatible with a 21 pin or a 9 pin or something?
Yeah, I'm sure pretty sure it'll work on 21 pin, but I'm not sure about an 8 pin.
Yeah.
And a lot of my older Bachmann steam engines are 8 pin.
Right. Well, most of my locomotives are no pin, so I have to wire them up the hard way, but that's because I have older Athearn blue box locomotives by and large. Frank, did you have anything for us today from up in the hierarchy?
Yeah, I only have a few minutes, but yeah, the meeting, the biggest discussion was the fact that the $20 9-month rail pass, the conversion rate is less than 6%. And so they're looking at some other things also. They are looking at doing where you pay like by the month. And in research has shown them that might be in other areas that's worked out really well. So they're looking at that. They're not going to discontinue it soon, but to be honest, if we can't get more than 6% to sign up after the 9 months, it's not worth it. Especially we're subsidizing half of it. So that was one thing. Another thing, they're going to force all the region presidents to go to their email system, which could be a problem for me because I can't get it to work on my Mac, and I'm not going to buy a PC to get.
Yeah, that seems odd. Their email system must be quite interesting if such.
Well, it's like you're supposed to go in and do settings that don't appear on my Mac. So I've got to call into their IT. Gordy thought that, you know, they could solve it. And one guy has a
Oh,
Mac,
yeah.
it works, but it's an older Mac.
Yeah.
So, and I use Mac Mail. I don't use Outlook.
Right.
I've given up on Outlook. I gave up on Outlook when I had a PC.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
that was
hopefully
just,
they can get that fixed, because that's
To say this, but
silly.
they'll
so
have to get it fixed. Then let me just hold on. I'm going to pull up my notes. That's the best way, right?
Yeah.
email is so much easier to use.
Yeah. Rack notes, January 24th. We had talks about data storage. That doesn't affect you guys. Oh, National Train Show. This is a big deal. So the National Train Show has, in the recent years, lost over $100,000 each year, sometimes up to 200 and something thousand. So they're talking, and that comes out of the NMRA. So that's our money. And so the discussion was, how many, does it really affect how many people go to the conventions? And it was about 50-50. It doesn't affect me. National Train Show is mainly HONN. Well, I'm in ON3. Last time I saw something in ON3 at a National Train Show was 20 years ago. I'm not a good one to judge. But at $100,000, they're probably going to nix it, and they'll have a National Train Show somewhere else. Yes.
Ignorant question. What is a national train show, and how come it costs so much?
Have you ever been to an NMRA national convention?
No.
Okay. So along with the convention, they have what's called the National Train Show, and this is for the manufacturers, the magazines, vendors, to show their wares and to connect with people. And how it works is it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm not sure on the days, but I think that's what it is. I know that's what it is. And so Friday is open only to the NMRA convention people, and it's included in your convention price. And Saturday and Sunday, you can go, but it's open to the public. Well, it's gotten smaller and smaller. I don't remember which one I went to. It didn't even fill up a third of the room that it was in.
Right.
And last time I went through it in 2 hours, and that included a half hour sitting down with a friend and having coffee. So for me, there isn't much, but
Right.
People really like it. And but the thing is that $100,000, let's just say that's the low end out of the NMRA budget, is a significant amount. I can't do it on the top of my head, but I think it's, I'll pull out my phone and do the calculator, $100,000. It's about $7 or $8 per member for the whole thing. And for convention attendees, it's even, would be a joke. So that was a big deal. And it'll be at Long Beach and at, I think the next year is Detroit, but somebody could correct me on that. I won't be going to Detroit. Anyway, and here's the deal. Last year, the NMRA convention in Texas at the Gaylord got 900 attendees, while the narrow gauge got 1,200. So that's another problem, the number of attendees. And they're looking at doing them in other venues than big cities because of the cost. So for example, there was some talk of doing a convention in Reno, not by the PCR, but other people. Well, Reno might be a good choice because you could get a casino to sponsor it, cut the cost down, And Reno might not be a bad place, maybe, but we'd have to have people that wanted to do it.
Right.
So that was another thing. And the other problem with a national trade show is less and less vendors. A booth, the size of booth like a GTE is $490.
Yep.
And that's almost triple of what the GTE show is, which attracts just a similar amount of people. So they're really concerned that they will they can't afford to lose money like that. That's basically the bottom line.
Frank, I'm interested as you say this because in my profession, I may be retired, but I'm still teaching. But I attended conventions 30 years ago in my profession, and big display halls, many vendors, but it got smaller and smaller and smaller, less and less vendors coming, and there was an element too of, we can promote our stuff on the internet. Why should we haul our gear to some exhibit hall someplace? And I wonder if there's a similarity with what's going on with NMRA conventions.
Well, I think there is, and I'm a musician. I was in high tech. I also taught at a community college. I didn't go to education conventions, but I used to go every year to the National Association of Music Merchandisers, the NAM show.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be to go, you had to be a member, which meant you had to own or work at a music store, or you had to be in, manufacturing.
Right.
Well, the last 2 years, they've opened it up to the public. It costs $100 and something to go. And it's literally half the size it used to be at the Anaheim Convention Center the last time I went, which was just before COVID, maybe 2 years before COVID, to be fair. It was at least a year because COVID happened right when the convention was. So it was at least a year before, but it may have been 2. And it took up the entire convention center in Anaheim, which is a relatively big convention center.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to be, at that time, work at a music store. My brother worked for Korg, so he could get me a ticket. Now $100, $120, you can go, and it doesn't even take up the whole convention center.
Yeah.
So even that, and they're doing a virtual one too, because people just aren't going. It costs, so what we talked about was shortening the length of the national convention. I don't know if you're going to Long Beach, but Long Beach starts on a Sunday and ends the following, basically Sunday. So you got 8 days.
Yep.
8 days at a hotel. That hotel's $200 and something a night. $1,600 just for the room. Yeah. $1,600.
No way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going.
Yeah.
But we're talking about how many days we'll actually stay. But we have stuff we want to do down there and friends living.
Mm-hmm.
In 5 years, everything will be a virtual convention.
It's a possibility.
I don't know if that's true. One of the big things about
I think it is. As when your generation, my generation, stop controlling things, it will become virtual.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if you're right. What I would agree is the NMRA is talking about, and like Detroit's going to be a 4-day convention.
Remember 2021 when you did do a virtual convention for the NMRA? It was a bit of a mess. The software wasn't up to the task, but it did sort of work because
some things work.
You got people who never go to a physical convention.
I agree, but I still think that I don't think conventions are going to end. in-person conventions totally. I think they're going to get smaller. I think they're going to change, but I'm not sure they're going to be. But um, in the Bible, if you were a prophet and you were wrong, they killed you. So I'm going to make a prophecy.
Yeah.
But it is talk. There's some other talk at the NMRA about stuff they're going to do. One of my things is I'm a little worried. Earl, are you still on? I guess not. I'm a little worried about the virtual convention for us drawing enough people because the NMRA-X has approximately 200 clinics that are free to us. There's 490, I could be wrong on the number. There's over 400 clinics on the NMRA website. And, some of them by very good people. So the clinics are going to be less of a draw going forward.
For those that value that don't value the in-person element.
It's fine.
Yeah.
There's also a great value to a virtual clinic because you can sit there and watch it at your workbench while you're working on the project.
Yeah, that's an advantage. One of the disadvantages for me is I will have questions that aren't addressed depending on the clinic.
That's true.
So that's the big deal. Now, very, very good clinicians, and I'm not dissing anybody, but guys like a Tony Thompson, they've done the same clinic multiple times and they address the questions that came up. So sometimes those are really good. Now I've done their clinic maybe 4 or 5 times. Every time I get different questions. So that's really the issue. I think more and more conventions are really gonna be about fellowship. And that's for the PCR, that's what I like.
And
So anyway,
that's
that's the national.
the thing, as you say that, one moment, Ken. As you say that, Frank, the thing that occurs to me is the local convention is local, and so it's much easier to get there than compared to slugging your way halfway across or all the way across the country. And so the local convention can help, has, I think, some better chance of staying alive just because it's easier for people to get there.
Well, I'm going to throw a wrench in. There's talk, the Daylight Division, which the last convention they did was Bakersfield, which they lost a lot of money.
Ouch.
We won't cover why. They are in talks and they want approval from the board, which we haven't given them yet. We probably will. To look at doing a joint convention between the PSR, which is the Southern California, and us. Now, historically, I'm probably one of just a few people on this call that know that or remember when the PSR and the PCR were one. And then we voted to split. And one of the reasons why, they'd have a convention in San Diego. Well, if you're even here in the Bay Area, but worse, maybe Santa Rosa or Reno, you have to pretty much fly to go to San Diego. From my house, I know San Diego really well because I had 2 kids that went to school down there, 4 years apart. So we made a lot of trips down there. Well, it's a minimum of 8-hour drive, more like 9.
Yeah.
And it can be longer. So flying is really about the only option. So the joint convention would be maybe somewhere like Santa Barbara, which Santa Barbara for us isn't much further than Bakersfield was. And it's a nicer drive. And it's a lot nicer when you get there.
Ouch.
There's Mo Beach.
I probably shouldn't have said that, but Santa Barbara's a pretty town. Bakersfield's an industrial area.
It's also a very expensive town.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in Santa Barbara, it'd be somewhere near there. But
Well, I'm saying, do it in Santa Maria, someplace like that.
that was one of the proposals was Santa Maria. Now I can tell you this, the guys in the daylight, they wanted to do it on the coast. So, but they're having trouble finding a reasonable venue. I suggested Paso Robles, in which case some of the people laughed because they said it was more expensive than San Luis Obispo.
Yeah.
So I'm going to an event in Cambria in March, but Cambria wouldn't be any good. There's no location that's big enough, and it's a little bit pricey.
Failed, unfortunately. I remember when it was a grubby little cheap wine town.
Well, we could storm Hearst Castle and take it over.
The thing I'm curious about, Frank, as we speak of this is 30 years ago, was it as expensive to go to a convention as it is today? Is it harder? Is it harder for us today to go to a convention than it was 30 years ago? In terms of, did it cost us a month's income or 2 weeks income back then, and now it's 2 months income?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think if you look at the cost, how inflation's hit, I don't think it's any more. It just feels like more. Here's the other thing. The average member is 75 now. I'm an average member.
I think hotel costs have gone up for more than anything else. Room costs just have become so inflated. It's you just don't want to go anywhere anymore.
Yeah,
Well,
that's part.
Here's the deal. We're I wouldn't say a dying hobby, but there's less and less. When I joined the PCR, the NMRA, I can't tell you the year for sure, but I became a life member in '71. When I joined the PCR, there were 2,500 members approximately. We're at 800 now. So that does another thing, that limits where you can go.
Yeah.
We can't go to we couldn't go to a place like the Hyatt or Hilton, whatever it is, where O-Scale West is. We have to have small venues. And the minute you do that, it goes up. And then the food goes up. Everything goes up. So that's one of the problems. And when you're on fixed income, I remember friends that were on fixed income that were a little older. You have to watch it more. Inflation's going up, but my income isn't. What I have coming in, what Susie and I have coming in, is not going up. So that affects it. So I'm not saying we're hurting. It's nothing like that, but it's a problem.
And again, this is what's driving, I think, to some sort of virtual convention type structure for hobby type settings. I can see somebody developing or taking something like Zoom and customizing it even more for convention type virtual conventions. I can even see Google perhaps going into a virtual convention software.
Yeah, they're in everything else. Oh dear. Well, Frank, thank you very much
Anyway,
for providing us
I have
with
to
a
get
more
going, but
information.
don't think that the convention, the PCR is a done deal. It's far from it.
Right. We just have to tune it up, right?
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know.
I know. It's just what we got to do to keep the train rolling.
Well, we've shortened the PCR convention by a day.
Yeah.
And you know, I know you're having trouble getting clinicians, right?
Well, I don't know that we're having trouble, but it just takes it takes some work. Although to be fair, as clinic chair, I started late on the job to start drawing people in, but Phil's pushing, other people are pushing. We'll get our clinicians.
Yeah. The other thing we're having trouble in all conventions is outside events. A lot of the places that we used to go because of insurance reasons won't allow us for
Hmm.
tours. And you know, this litigious society we have has messed things up.
Yeah,
Uh, you know,
that's a
and
broader that's a broader problem than just us, though.
yeah, it's a problem for everybody.
Everybody.
We the National in Sacramento, we were able to go through the Sawmill in Lincoln, and I think those days are over.
Mm.
You know, it's too dangerous.
Well, if all you have to do, you see, is just have the convention up in Portola, because up there, the Western Pacific Museum guys, they are so far away. There are not many lawyers per square mile, and so they're pretty free and open up there.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Thank you, Frank.
No.
Does anybody have some modeling stuff they'd like to share before we put a wrap on today's activities? Mike is working on some interesting electronic stuff.
What am I doing here?
Oh, hang on, Mike. Yes, Ken?
No, it's just that I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to make um needle beams that were used under Harriman passenger cars in HO scale.
What's a needle beam?
A needle beam. It's just a support structure underneath. I could show you, but I don't think you could see the.
This is part of a truck assembly under the car?
It's similar to a cross beam underneath the underneath a passenger car,
Okay.
and well,
So this is
it's just
underbody detailing that you can see when you look. As a car rolls by, it's part of the visible underbody detail?
not really.
Okay. All right. So for those serious underbody detailers.
This is for Rivet County.
An honorable profession. Okay, so there's needle beams.
I just enjoy the replicating the detail. Remember, I'm not an operator. So
Okay. Fair enough. Mr. Dunstan, you had something you were working on you were thinking of sharing?
Yeah, I can. I shared last weekend on the other Zoom. I think it was for just the Sierra division, but I can run down real quick if anybody's interested, in a new product that will be announced next weekend. So this is, would be also a direct competitor to the Bluinami in some of the features that are available. And, some of the features that he mentioned of like naming your functions, that is available already on DCC side, if you have a compatible throttle. But for those users that are using MRC products today, like Phil and the ON30 Club, there are new products coming. For the last year, I've been working with MRC on development of a new product line to replace the Prodigy systems in whole. And today has been building the throttle control boards that will go into the full-size enclosure with a large screen.
Okay.
And for those people that still have Prodigy systems, again, like Phil and the club, we have a gateway device that enables them to connect to new throttles as a replacement for the existing hard to find wireless throttles that are pretty much out of stock everywhere. And the functionality for the new throttle is it'll work seamlessly with the existing Prodigy system and the new command station that is going to be coming out later this year to replace the Prodigy system. And this will also work with any of the TCS products, including their command station or boosters, and it'll work seamlessly. But it's, you know, we're announcing it next weekend, and I can share the announcement brochure that I have if I still have it. Doesn't look like I do though. So I can send it out to Phil, and he can send it around to you guys if you guys would like. You know, I'll have to dig it up and send it over to him. But we've got new products coming, and there will be more being announced over the summer. Since I'm also building an ON30 layout that is probably going to make it to the national show this late summer. If I can get it built and completed in time based on does the weather cooperate. So there's going to be a lot of new products coming or announced as part of this. So and I probably will also be able to make it out to the TechLine convention and possibly do a clinic. So we'll need to be in touch. I think, David, you're on mute.
Dave, you're muted.
Yeah. Let me. Okay, I assume you're hearing me now.
Yes.
There we go. One moment. Yeah, there's my email. Throw something at me on clinics, right? On the layout stuff, the website for the TechLine has the link to get to the layout coordinator. But anyway, so yes, we'll be interested to see, because frankly, I always thought of the MRC stuff as being more entry level, and it sounds like maybe they're wanting to step up their game. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, the goal we're having is we're going to bring advanced features and functionality, but we're going to make it easily approachable.
Yeah, that's a great goal.
Yeah, sticking with the the MRC line of it's got to be simple and easy to do.
Yeah,
and that's kind of my goal in designing the new products for them as well.
Good.
But we're bringing in a lot of higher technology features that technically this throttle can talk to that Bluinami decoder if I know the protocol.
Right.
Or I can spend $200, buy the decoder, and reverse engineer it if I need to.
Yeah.
Or just work with George and avoid a potential lawsuit for infringing on his products.
There's that, yes.
Yeah.
I must say for myself that I love it when high technology is hidden under the surface so that we don't have to interact so much with it. I find it very frustrating to deal with the complexities that have been thrown at us now out of some of these new technologies. But we'll look forward to seeing more on that, Mike. Vincent or Jim, do you have anything for us today you'd like to share? No, Vincent's keeping his head down. Smart move, Vincent. How about you, Mr. Ekman?
I finally got my new printer.
Which 3D printer?
No,
I guess
it's called a craft printer.
Okay.
It's on the poster card.
And, for building model buildings?
Yes.
Neat.
and it'll print up to 11 by 17, which is pretty impressive for a $200 printer.
Yeah.
And I just ran the calibration things through to see how it well represents colors. Here's the original color I painted on, for example. I have color swatches on it.
Right.
And then after I scan it and print it, you'll see that some of these colors don't match so well.
Right.
So that way I can actually use this as a guide.
Yeah.
So when I create a paper building, I can match the color so I can have touch-up paint for painting edges and things like that.
So this is in the sense of you could sit there and take a photograph of a building.
Yeah.
And then just literally print that onto the cardstock and bingo, you've got a wall.
Yeah.
That seems like cheating. That's neat. That's neat. Says the clinic chair, if you're feeling like you're starting to get your arms around it, feel free to propose a clinic about it, because that sounds very interesting.
I mean, I am slowly putting things together, but because my computer failed a while back,
Oops.
it's taking me a while to catch back up with things.
Oh, yeah.
Issues, so, but fortunately those have been fixed too. So
good. All
good.
right. Well, maybe I won't catch you for this convention, but maybe another one. Ken?
Problems with that approach is that most of the buildings I want to model were destroyed 50 or more.
Yeah.
I have photos too.
Yeah. That's the challenge, is the research to get the raw basic core material you need to model through 3D printing, or what Jim is doing here, or the scratch builders that just sit there with little tiny wooden sticks, glue, and a lot of bad words. Speaking of which, you'll see my iPad mini over here, and I am confirmed in my belief that I am no longer going to take this approach to modeling a loaded center beam, because it's just way too boring. And besides, for the period I'm modeling, which is 1987 Southern Pacific, there weren't many center beams actually in service. Stuff was wood was being loaded into guns or onto flat cars or bulkhead flats, which is what I'm going to have to do more of. First of all, I have to find some to buy, and then separately, finding something to buy is these things. I've decided to get my late 1980s area Amtrak Coast Starlight going, but it turns out that the Kato brand of cars are not easy to find, and they ain't cheap. So I'm slowly hunting when they show up on the internet to buy them. But one of these just cost me $178 with the shipping from Japan, and it's like, oh man, plastic car, $178 with shipping. But I'm going to stay at it. I've still got to find an observation lounge and a diner and another sleeper. So that's my
Dave, that's about the same price as the new Rapido SP Dome car.
Really? Yeah. I'm just going to get this one train, and then if a dream comes true and my wife and I move to our dream home with a basement, this train will run through the layout north to south, and then later on run south to north. Just the one train. Thank you very much. No, nothing else.
I'm doing a static version of the Shasta Daylight. There's no room on my layout once I put enough cars on to move it.
Right.
But I want to do that because I rode that train in 1965, and it's just one of those things I want to do. And I rode a car.
Yeah.
As long as they'd let me.
Yes. Well, I've ridden the Starlight back in the 80s also, and I love the look and the history of passenger travel at that time. and have to sit here and take a bunch of Bachmann Spectrum F40 PHs and get them DCC'd up and put strobes in them and all that stuff. That's going to keep me busy.
On the dome car, the reason we're getting it
Yeah.
is that one still exists and is now owned by the Canadian Pacific,
Ah,
refurbished, rebuilt, and everything else. And of course, Jason Schron of Rapido is in Canada, and he wanted that car. So because of it, all the SP modelers are getting a beautiful, interior everything, 6 different sidings and paintings and all that sort of stuff. For only 6, 7, or 8 cars actually existed version of the 3/4 dome car, and it's called the 3/4 dome because it's only 3/4 the height of a regular dome, because the SP had clearance problems in the mountains.
okay. So if you're up in the dome, you have to be like this, right?
No, it was gorgeous to look out that dome.
Oh,
The end of the car was a lower level, but still glass covered lounge.
yeah. Well, my wife and I are talking about flying to Denver and bringing running the train from Denver back to Emeryville just to experience that. But it's not cheap. Oh,
I'll do it in the near future until at least late spring or summer.
yeah.
Amtrak's not operating right now.
Yeah.
That's also a really nice route. I went on that quite a few years ago. Rode it from Chicago all the way to Emeryville.
Yep. I'm just afraid the one thing that concerns me though is you get to Denver and then the train is 4 hours late, 5 hours late out of Chicago to Denver, and it's just like it's just a gamble. But that's Amtrak today.
That one.
Yeah. Gentlemen, who else has something, or are we about trained out for the day here?
Thanks for my social hour and a half.
Yep. Okay. Well, Vincent, good to see you here, by the way. I don't know if I've seen you on these calls before.
No, I've been on a few before.
All right.
Not as regular as I should be, but
No.
I'm a big fan of George and Bluinami. So, in fact,
Yeah.
I work with. I don't know if you can see it. I
Oh,
work
there
with
it is.
Bluetooth a lot. So
Yeah. I
And-
just got a little bit overwhelmed by his presentation.
Yeah.
It just, wow, what a fire hose. And
he's very passionate.
oh, yes.
When Blue Rail started, I was really interested. And then they went off and they were only doing Mac versions. And I'm unfortunately one of those people who's who believes that Apple is rotten to the core.
Ah, there you go.
So I had to wait, and now they're actually working. Locofoya came along; they're fully Android.
Yep.
It had to port over to a Mac. It's your OS.
Yes.
In life.
Yep.
Well, in his case, Bluetooth is a standard, so it should even work on a Windows PC if they choose to support it.
And the standards are the
Yeah.
communication standards, but
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that
Yeah.
the platform, the physical platform choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Mike, I just saw your email roll in here. I'll respond there.
Sounds
that.
good.
All right. Gentlemen, a pleasure. And we will, of course, do this again. I'm talking to Phil now. Hosting may come over to me for hosting these things in the future, because Phil's about up to here with the convention and everything else. But we'll keep the ball rolling. My emphasis will be on sharing information and knock jokes as usual. Things we've learned, found out, and we'll go from there. And Ken, I have to make one last comment. I'm an operator. I just recently put together a Southern Pacific boxcar. I looked at it and I thought, am I going to sit there and add details and stuff? No. At this point, an Athearn Blue Box properly put together that fully complies with all the standards so it's reliable, that I'll spend time on. But sitting there and carefully carving off each hand grab and putting on a separately applied wire hand grab, years ago I did that. I'm not doing it now because I just want them to run.
Hard. That's how I started in the hobby. Always have been. I mean, I built toy, ship models when I was a kid. Got into, I had a fleet of U.S. destroyers that I sailed on my bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's a thing. It's just an orientation.
Exactly. It's all good. The only people I think get in trouble that pretend to be rivet counters when they can't count the rivets right. That's the only one.
Another thing. Right now, I'm waiting for photos of the top of a tender that's sitting in Bakersfield.
The
exact rivet pattern.
Yep.
Because all of the other photos have been just slightly off.
You can't see it.
Promise me they're going to take a photo, some proper for it.
All right.
The guy who did the absolutely perfect drawings didn't do the rivets.
Ah. All right. Well, you'll get it. Gentlemen, have a good day today, and I will see you later on. Okay, all. Take care. Bye-bye.